Alright guys, Copper Cutlass, it's been a couple of weeks, maybe even a month. A lot has happened. So, I don't know if I mentioned it, but I actually sent out the Turbo 350 with the Ultra Belt to get rebuilt by probably one of the best local guys, High Performance Transmission Specialties. Carl took care of me. It wasn't cheap, but I know it's right. The guy has a very good rap with local racers. Ava came out and joined us, guys. Finfin is out there. Finfin, come here, boy. So he's out here. So either way, transmission's built. Backup's good. I don't know if I mentioned it. Our dialing still on the car. We went racing last weekend again. We'll talk about that later. Dogs are out here sniffing the mags, which I'm going to clean these up, fix these wheels up. I think I'm going to get some cheap tires for them, run them on the front for the street. But most importantly, guys, our block is back from the machine shop. We got it. So we got the block back. Everything's been balanced. Now, typically, I would go over everything and measure everything, but I was really involved throughout the whole process with my machinist. He's pretty much retired. He does this by a pretty much word-of-mouth basis only. He's very selective on who he works with. But we really, I think I mentioned it, we really hit it off. And, you know, he gave me all of his measurements, and our pre-measurements were the same. So when he measured everything out and he gave me those numbers before we machined anything, mine and his were almost the same. So I doubted my numbers, but he told me, numbers are numbers, man. You really can't screw them up. If your average is the same throughout, that's the number. So we went with 5 thousandths piston to wall clearance. There's only one bore that changed after he took the torque plate out, but that's not a big deal. We're still within like a couple of, I think it was like, the difference was like a couple of tenths, so it wasn't major. We got our pistons, he cleaned up the rods, everything is measured out, really nice. Our brand new flat tops, of course. Not a super light piston, but it's gonna work for our application. Everything is written on the box here, so the weights, I'll get my wife to come over here a little bit. So the weight he wrote on the box, you know, the pin size, the rings, you know, the grams, the weight, everything. So everything's good there. I got intake gaskets for both the small block and the big block up here, along with my gaskets down here. You know, so everything is set to go. My wife's using the selfie stick. I'm gonna let her back up a little bit here as I bag up the block again. So, a couple of things. In the last couple of weeks, I acquired a solid roller cam from JJ, and I don't know if I'm actually going to use that for this engine. I'm still on the fence. And I'm set to pick up a Victor Jr. intake sometime soon, which actually, I got a message to that guy now that I think about it. I don't know if it's this weekend or during the week or when, but either way, he's on his way to Brainerd, and on the way there, he's going through Rockford, which is close, and I'm supposed to pick up the intake. So I got a Victor Jr. intake for a small block Olds, but I have the Performer intake here. God damn, I forgot how heavy this thing is. But we have to port this to the big block size, which you guys can see how much meat is on these runners. So this intake was made to be used with the Edelbrock aluminum heads. If you're on a small block, there's enough material here to port it. Since we're using the big block heads, that's what we got to use. But before that, I got to kind of start pre-assembling things and figure out if we have to mill that intake or not and where everything's going to sit. So we got a little bit of work to do, but we're still in the full swing of the race season. So right now, actually it's pretty exciting. I'm 17th in points out of 40 cars. We're working our way up there. Our first time out, we went into the semifinals, which was pretty exciting, if you guys saw that. We went out last weekend, and we got 2 test runs, and then first round of eliminations, I went red. Again, I'm kind of glad I did. Our very first time out, we went into the semifinals. Our last time out, we went out after 1 round. But the good thing is that I had the GoPro in the car, and there was a 500-ish RPM launch difference between our test runs and my actual runs, like our elimination runs, so our first round. So what I'm going to do for that is actually I'm going to get a shift light in the car and set it low. I'm going to get a green or blue shift light that's going to be for launch RPM. So if that shift light is on, my RPM is too high. I want it slightly under that or anywhere under that to try to really, finesse that, since in the sportsman class we can't use a two-step, or you really can't use any launch aids like that. So, but the car ran good. Our first run was a 12:06 in our test run. Then it was a 12:07, and as the day went on, the weather actually got better, and we got a tailwind. And on the run that I went red for eliminations, I would have broken out anyway. It went a 12:02 on a 12:05 dial, but we went red anyway, so it doesn't matter. So I hope you guys are going to be patient with me, but we do have, this engine is going to get built. We have everything. The crank is over here, nice and neatly wrapped around my stand here. We got our camshaft, which is, I'm pretty dead set, I think, on using the solid flat tappet, which is an old Mondello angle grind. It's a solid lifter cam, very similar to what's in the car now. And even though it won't be an apples to apples comparison, or even, apples to apples engine, we are going to have a little bit more compression in this one. We're not going to have as much intake. I'm not going to have as much intake porting. It is still going to be a dual plane. But we have those big block heads. They got a lot more runner volume. I think this engine should be very close in the horsepower to this. But I'm kind of building this engine to be a workhorse, and I have to stay with that theme, right? So we're going to use what we got, because ultimately I want to continue to cut my teeth running sportsman class. If I can double up and run pro next year, great. But the idea is to run this engine next year. My current engine is running really, really good still. But I want to pull it out, see what it looks like, and make the decision on whether or not I'm going to either go with a stroker, or I'm just going to do new rods and a nice light piston. Mark Remo, Cutlass EFI, some of you Oldsmobile people might know him. He offers a really nice package that is very affordable for new rods and new pistons, and you end up with a 4.1 bore, which is bigger than what I got. So I would end up with maybe like a 360, a 358, somewhere around there. It was all poised, all cute. So she's a good girl. She's old, but she's good. So my idea is to get this engine together, have it running, ready for next year. And if, hopefully everything continues to hold up, and if not, then it is what it is. But we have everything to pretty much put it, and I'm curious if I have a fine selection of push rods here that my buddy Mike gave me, which might be really, really close, because these all came from his small block builds. So there's actually 2 sets of hardened one piece. We were not going to use these little dinky ball end ones, but the one piece hardened ones is what we really want to use. And if they check out, hopefully they work out. But a couple things I still have to do is I have to drill out the restrictors, which are somewhere over here in my box of shit. I have to look for them. Here we go. So these restrictors I have to drill out. I don't know if you guys can see them very well, but it's a very small orifice. And since the block has already been drilled to accept the restrictors and the lifter bores, I have to open them up. And since I have a block down there, I'm going to measure out the orifice of the oil opening and see how much we can go. I was told minimum do 60 thou, but if we can go bigger, it'd be easier to use a bigger drill bit, just because. I will open them up as much as I possibly can, and then reinsert them in the block. And I have to make a little jig to drill them out, something to hold them, not tighten up as I work. Not a big deal. Now, the other point of controversy with this engine is that I am going to end up leaving the main journal restrictors, which restrict oil flow to the cam. The cam bearings that came out of there are actually right here. machinist gave them back to me. And although they do restrict flow, these bearings are in good shape. They weren't smoked out. They got beat up upon removal, but they weren't roached. So despite this engine being destroyed by too tight of a clearance and spinning every single rod bearing in it prior, the cam bearings were still good. So I think I'm going to just leave them in there, no harm, no foul at this point. People ran them for years and they were fine. So I'm going to leave that there, but I am going to open up the lifter bore restrictors so that we're not running it insufficiently. Either way, that's outdated technology, but I kind of have to run with what we got, much like we did with Enron last year. A lot of outdated techniques there. But either way, we got everything. I'm going to slowly work on getting this short block together. I have to get rings because I have to file fit them. But we'll go from there. So at the end of this video, I do got in-car camera footage of this, out-of-car camera footage of this thing running over at the track. So I'm going to put that at the end of this video. Hopefully you guys enjoy it. And we do have stuff coming up. And then there is prep work for the Pontiac. I've been talking about it, and the BOP race is coming up. And my wife is actually going to take it out, and she's going to make a couple runs at that event with the car. So I have to get a drive shaft safety loop. I have to do some welding underneath for the crossmember and fix the angles up a little bit. And put some quieter mufflers on it. For a cruiser, it's obnoxiously loud. I chose the wrong muffler. So I'm going to put good mufflers on it at cutouts so we can open them up at the track, see what this car will finally do. So my wife is going to be going on the track in the Pontiac at the BOP event, and my dog just farted. So I'll let you guys go. Share, like, subscribe. If you guys want to follow me on Instagram, Copper Cutlass, hit the like button. If you're not subscribed, subscribe. We got stuff coming up with the 350 build that it finally is back from the machine shop a month later, which is a good turnaround time, by the way. So I'll let you guys go.